It's late at night, and I figured voiceover seemed to translate far better than me actually recording while messing with Gunpla at the same time. It gives me the freedom to think clearly rather than focusing on something that I find to be all-encompassing. Probably the wrong phrase. But most of my thought process goes deeply into what I'm doing at the time, and I can't split my train of thought in that sense. It's hard to explain, but when you're so focused on something, it's hard to convey thoughts, emotions, and feelings when you have one goal that you have to meet for your own satisfaction. And that's why I will now probably just do voiceovers for all my Gunpla work. Because why not? This is more intimate. It's more clear. I can actually tell you what I'm doing without focusing on it, which leads to me having all that dead air and space in between, sentences. It's really jarring, I believe. Broken, disconjointed, etc. Also, I find that while messing with Gunpla, my mind is far more at ease. So I curse less, ironically, right? Now, this was a message I received last month. It was from a Randy Breadbox. Now, that's a name. He said, "Hey there, Gundam. I've recently come to the horrible realization that I'm at the age of 21. I don't have any hobbies. Like you do. When I watched your painting video, the way you were talking made me kind of jealous. Sure, I play video games and watch anime, but that's pretty much it. And I don't know if I can bring myself to call that a hobby, like others do. On top of that, it's definitely not something I feel like I can take unabashed pride in doing like you do when you're painting Gundams. I can't find anything interesting, and when I consult Google..." Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you, but it's probably kind of funny, Like, sitting there, Google, what should my hobby be? And then, Google is like, this is the day we've been waiting for when people depend on us so much, we tell them what they like. Anyway, all it tells me about is stamp collecting and knitting. So when he consults Google, it just says, try stamp collecting or knitting, you fucknut. Up, I cursed. Do you have any old man wisdom for a young fool like me?
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Hopefully this reaches you within the next 2 years. Randy. Well, your prayers have been answered, Randy. It got to me in a month. Papa Gundam blesses. I don't know if I'm going to alter this video to edit in all my other endeavors. Maybe I will, because I feel that there is no greater illustration than some form of illustration. See what he did there? He's creative. I feel everyone should have some sort of hobby. That's just me personally. Something that matters to you, something you take some level of pride or accomplishment in. I used to see video games as a hobby, but now I look at them as distractions. Distractions from the reality of life, the minutiae of existence, which can be overbearing and all-encompassing. I use the phrase again. And that's pretty much what it is at this point. Video gaming used to be an art form, and now it's pretty much mainstream. And anything that goes mainstream, all the art is removed from it so that they can make it homogenized and mass produce it on a yearly basis, if at all possible, because the gaming industry only cares about one thing, and that's profit. That is it. They don't care about anything else. Not what you think, not about the lore, not about artistic expression, not about creating brilliant stories anymore. It's about making as much money as possible, because the movie industry and the music industry has eaten shit and died. Now gaming is number one. So all you have are guys who went to school trained to make money. They don't know shit about art. I'm cursing. See, I shouldn't talk about gaming. See what you did there, dude? Zen is ruined. I've always been an artistic person, I guess. Due to my size, 5'11", around 170 now, maybe 175. And I'm not built like a brick wall anymore. I'm pretty average build, unfortunately, but I'll make the change later when I find time to go back to working out profusely again. So I was always an artistic person. I could draw. Now I know I can paint Gunpla, so maybe I'll take my hand at, painting some drawings and whatnot. But later on in life, as I enjoy this far too much currently. I always had a love for costumes. Back before cosplay was a thing, I loved movie props and replicas in comics, etc. And I always wanted to create something that looked realistic or perfect. I always cared about what I did. because the world is very judgmental. People will look down on you in a heartbeat. And the only way to avoid being looked down upon is to be able to surpass your expectations and theirs. This is the type of guy I've always been. By the way, while painting these pieces, you notice that I did the gold on top of the chrome here. Sadly, the rubber masking fluid I used, for some reason, totally killed the shine on that gold. So I don't know if I didn't leave it to cure long enough, or if there is something inside the lacquer paint that reacted negatively to the rubber masking fluid. So from now on, I'm probably going to tape those areas off rather than rubber masking fluid, or wait, a couple hours before I try it again. So a little heads up for you guys, because you'll notice I'll be painting those later again by hand. So whatever I took interest in back on Point, I always, made the effort to make it exceptional, because it was a form of self-expression. And that's probably the only thing we have left: self-expression and integrity. Few people have either. So find something that you are into, that you can express yourself with, whatever it is, honestly. I don't feel video games are self-expression anymore. Unless like you're modding a game, then you're injecting something you want into the world. Therefore, it's creativity. But if you're just playing, pretty much you're a consumer at this point. Sad to say. I've said it numerous times in the past. EA and Activision are like the McDonald's and Burger King of video games. Just letting you know. Tell other people I said it. I should put it on a t-shirt. I also took up motorcycle track riding. Wanted to try my hand at racing professionally, but I just couldn't afford it. It's far too expensive. Far too expensive. I remember this racing team owner saying, "Oh, you want to race? All right. You need to spend at least $2 million if you hope to make $1 million." And I'm sitting there like, Jesus Christ. It's not that expensive for the average club racer, but it's something that only guys with the money can afford to do. Like if you worked construction and you didn't have a family, you could probably afford to be like a racer on the weekends. Maybe doctors could do it, but they can't spend too much time on it, because frankly, if a doctor fucks himself on a racetrack, he can't go back to work. It's just that sort of beast. And especially in the American motorcycle racing industry, for the love of God, you gotta pay to play these days. That's why we don't have any Americans in the world stage. All the Americans we have that are involved in like WSBK or Moto2 or whatever, they're kind of scrubs. Honest to God, they're scrubs. You see the American racer bringing up the rear, and it's just like, oh Jesus, And people sitting there, one day we'll have another Ben Spies. It's like, get out of my face with that. But anyway, back to Gunpla stuff. Hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully I'll remember to edit in some better stuff. Just talking about the game industry got me tired. Currently, I'm using CJ Hobby's metal parts for the rods and many other metal accents. I've grown to like adding metal detail pieces because it really does give the Gunpla a lot more life, having real metal there. Now, I know there are guys who are talented enough to recreate the look of metal, but currently I'm still struggling with how to go about it without ruining it. The best option I've had so far is Aqua Clear to protect my metal paints, but the Aqua Clear still eats away that metal look. It'll look okay, but not as good as when you first sprayed it down. So whenever I can use a real metal part, I'm all about it, dude. They're fairly simple to install. You just need a hand drill. You do not want to use a Dremel or anything electronic here, because you will totally screw up what you're doing. It takes that sort of human precision to get to where you're going with these. The glue I'm using for this entire process is, I believe, Loctite's or Loctite, I don't know, gel glue. Someone sent me some Tamiya gel glue from Japan, actually, which is cool. They live there. I forgot their name, unfortunately. I plan on using that later on once my Loctite is used up. Oh, all the gold accenting. I don't know if I recorded myself doing it, probably not. But certain levels of the gold, you'll see they're different colors. I switch between Alcalad, their mirror gold, which honest to God, I cannot get it to look like a mirror finish. And I also used Candy Gold, mainly by Spastics. The funny thing about the Spastics Candy Gold is depending on how much you use really determines the way it looks. If you do a light coat, you can get the right sort of shade of gold to match the CJ Hobby parts. If you go a little too heavy, then it becomes a much darker gold. I wouldn't say it's rich. It's just different. It's not exactly where I wanted to go with it, but since I don't really practice any of the paints I use, it's kind of a learning experience in real time. As I find painting the Gunpla themselves yields different results at times than, painting a plastic spoon. I see people do that all the time. I tried it. It's just not working for me, And it take a hot minute to eat some Vegemite. It helps fight fatigue. I treat it like my 5-hour energy. If 5-hour energy tasted like vegetables mashed into a very odd paste. Right now I'm working on the legs. As you can see, I did some, oh, Jesus, there goes a part. I did painting to try and match all the pistons. I went for the sort of piston color you'd see on a race bike, the usual gold and silver combo that you'd even see on a MotoGP ride, simply because I thought it was more elegant looking. And I figured that Char's Sazbi would be a very elegantly made mobile suit to fit his aesthetic. Not too much, not too little. Just enough sort of ambiance, if you will, to make the suit seem more beautiful to behold, but not too much. Sometimes I see people go overboard and then they paint Sazbi like all gold. And I'm just kind of like, it's a little much for me personally. It's like when you see a guy riding a motorcycle and the whole fucking thing is chrome and you're just like, such a horrible taste. Look at that rotted skunk over there twisting in the wind. Here's the part that I have to paint again in gold by hand because, like I said before, there was some weird reaction where the rubber masking fluid just killed the paint job I did on these accents, which really sucked because they look really, really nice. And it's a process, honest to God. I mean, I could have gone with a more simpler gold, like just straight up gold. But the best looking golds usually have either a glossy black background or a mirror chrome finish. Whereas just a gold by itself is fairly mute. I wanted something with a bit more life to it. But whatever, things happen in Gunpla, honestly. And usually mistakes made, as I've said numerous times before, rather than being upset with a mistake, let it stay and then move on with the build. I found many of the scuff marks and scratches I put into this paint job, putting it back together. I realized they were perfect focal points for adding damage, but that's gonna have to come in another video because unfortunately we're on this one and I'm getting way ahead of myself. As you can see, we're just putting on the armor for the legs. A lot of the parts didn't fit that well, unfortunately, and that's the sort of problem you run into sometimes, because I resprayed some areas multiple times trying to get the right shade of red, in my opinion, which sucked. I have about 9 different shades of red. You can't tell, but it's there. And the downside of that many coats of paint is sometimes the parts will not fit flush the way they're intended because now there's like, a couple layers of paint on top of that plastic and there was only so much room to work with. And yeah, it's a real downer. And taking apart the legs, as you know, if you've messed with Sazbi, or if you haven't yet, but you will in the future, is a lot of work. This is a very, very intricate mobile suit. I think the Master Grade Sazbi is like borderline a perfect grade. Many people agree. It's almost as tall as one too. God, I really wish they made a perfect grade Sazbi, but I think it'd be too tall. I think a perfect grade Sazbi at 1/60th scale would really feel like a 1/48th scale mobile suit, And I don't think Bandai cares enough to do that, sadly, because let's face it, Bandai's pretty lazy. They keep putting out, refreshes of mobile suits that came out before. There's like 30 different Exia Gundams, Freedom Gundam all over the place, over and over and over again. There's like 5 unicorn variants, and all I really want is like perfect grade Sazbi, new Gundam, and Kshatriya. I'll shut up if they just give me the Kshatriya perfect grade. How about that? I'll compromise. But, it's Bandai. They're going to keep pumping out what's popular and what's easy to flip, Like, it's easier to create, like, a different version of the red frame than it is to put out a whole 1/60th scale perfect grade Sazbi. Though I think that thing would sell out so fast it'd be disgusting. Well, tune into my next video, which should be up fairly soon, hopefully. I'm going to probably start editing it after this finishes rendering. Because why not? You know, let's get as many of these out as possible because I need to free up the space on my computer. I have hundreds of gigabytes of Gundam stuff that I've been working on due to people requesting it. So there you go. I listen. It's a one-man operation running like 4 channels. You have to cut me some slack. Well, rate, comment, subscribe if you so choose to, because the more of you who do so will only make me bigger in the Gunpla market, and then companies will be forced to sponsor me. We're going to twist their arms, clean off their little bodies if we have to. I'm going to be the most interesting guy in the game, which isn't really hard right now. All I have to do is get some better lighting, figure out how to do some more dynamic camera shots. Boom, I'm going to be the king in no time. He is so great. Bless him, for he is something.